everybody, I want you to just kind of give me what your headcanon of what is happening in the game, because there is a lot that is left up to interpretation, I think. There's a lot that is said and implied with the Brotherhood, with the Institute, with the Railroad, and then what you really think is going on, what's really happening. I personally do not think you were ever a real existing human. And that's why they gave you a voice. And it was one of those things that they tried to show and they just didn't. They just couldn't do it. I think that, much like how Nick, they took, and that's why I think they make you hang out with Nick, and you have to learn about how Nick has these memories of this cop from pre-war. And his whole quest line of like, I gotta find my girlfriend, see? Or whatever the fuck. And I think you were the memories of a soldier that they found or something. They inherited this body and they kind of built up this thing, because there's no possible way that the blast that nuke gives from that far away, you would have survived. He would have. So
are you saying that the entirety of the opening of Fallout 4 is all in your robot mind palace?
Yeah, it's not real. It's not real.
Okay.
And there was a video I watched that during the cryogenic scene is the same filter they put on during the part where you go into Kellogg's brain. Now, that could have just been to, like, the neurons.
That could have been frugal animations,
It probably is, absolutely. But it doesn't not help my case.
Of course.
So, it's probably just to save money, save time, obviously. But think about it like that. Here's this person who you leave the vault, and let's just say you're a Gen 4 synth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gen 3 was the only way you could tell if they were a synth is you had to kill them and take a piece out of their brain. That's the only way you could tell they were a Gen 3 synth. You're a Gen 4 synth. You're so human that there's no way to tell if you die, and even if you do die, who knows? You're the first. And Father knows that he's sick, and he said, all right, release him. Because why if they know about 111 and they know that it's cryogenic, like, everybody else in there is dead. Like, were they test subjects? Were they the first people that they tried to work on? Is that where they got DNA from? Like, I know they got it from Father, but, like, a lot of it just seems too convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's supposed to put these bits of self-doubt into it. I think you're a synth. I think the whole time you're the first synth with real free will. Because I think even Gen 3s can be turned off and on with a code.
Mm-hmm.
And
like
Gen
the Coursers.
4, yeah, and Gen 4s can't. So I think that was the goal, was Father was just kind of like, cool, I'll make the best synth ever made, and then when I die, I'll tell that synth he has to take over. But I'll let him decide if he wants to do it, and he will, because I'm Father and I'm arrogant. And then you blow up the Institute. Like, I don't know. I don't think that the story that you're given is real. I think that, and I said this to Chris recently, I want to go back to the beginning of Fallout 4 and see where the skeletons are.
Yeah.
But
I think I've got a decent headcanon.
Okay.
So mine, it's kind of similar, but my headcanon is that you, the player, are actually a clone of Father because he's trying to extend his life.
Mm-hmm.
And he built you from his own DNA and gave you the story that you're the dad of Sean, where in actuality it's just his own personality duplicated into another body.
So almost, is it a third generation synth though, or is it like this fourth generation synth idea, like Vince said?
I'd say, I haven't really thought about that yet.
Either one is interesting.
It's definitely an artificial person, but that the actual consciousness is just like a memory modified version of Father, the leader of the Institute, because he knows he has cancer. So he probably like just did a copy of his brain and he just put it in another skin suit and introduces this skin suit of a main character to the Institute saying, "Hi, yes, I'm dying, come take over," where he's literally just giving himself the keys. Because who else could he trust but himself?
Yeah.
That's my headcanon. It's a little bit simple, but that's what I think.
God, how much time
Chris,
do we have?
Do you have a big one?
I mean, okay, so okay.
We have as much time as you want, Chris.
Okay.
We'll have some editing
All right,
to do.
guys. All right. I'm gonna just go.
Hit us.
All right.
Hit us with it.
All right. So here's what I think happened. So Institute needed like DNA, right, or whatever. So they took the baby from the 11 thing. So they took the baby. They used the DNA. They make sense. Whoop-de-doo. So father is, at first he's kind of just this specimen to make the sense, but obviously he becomes father. He becomes leader of the Institute. He must be smart. He must contribute in some way. So my idea is that as he, was becoming smarter and being seen as like somebody who could become like director or whatever, he's coming up with all these crazy ideas of like, redefining mankind. That's the Institute's whole spiel, is they're trying to redefine mankind so that it can continue forth. And their big thing is...
Which is a noble goal, if you think about it.
Yeah, and their big thing is it has to be done through the synths. Now, from what I can tell playing the game, third generation synths are basically just slaves. They're used for labor. Like, they're used for labor while the actual real human beings continue to live in luxury and reproduce. That's how mankind, quote unquote, is redefined? Question mark? So, father, growing up as a scientist in the Institute or whatever, gets this idea. He talks to like the other higher ups. He's like, well, what if we what if we actually, take this technology and we find a way to literally basically go to cloning to make sure that in case something happens above ground, we are better prepared and like we don't have to so our genes can go on. We can literally make sure mankind continues on even if we don't exist, we can't survive up there or whatever. So basically propose.
Yeah, and that can kind of make a lot of sense, especially because if you're designing a whole new vessel for humanity, you can make it radiation resistant.
Exactly. You're basically, what it is gene modifying. So it also, this is the other cool thing I like about this idea.
Gene modification and designer babies are a real thing.
Right. And
that's the thing that is
it's
just on the cusp of
controversial.
our actual science. Yeah.
And it's controversial, which I love about it too, is that the game to me has so many controversial topics, which makes the game interesting. So you have this conflict of so a few scientists, just the top scientists get together and are like, okay, let's just talk about we're scientists because that's what scientists do. It goes too far. So they are they design this fourth generation synth, and the first version that they come up with is they want to use DNA that is not Sean's. So they actually use the DNA from Sean's father, who is still frozen. Sean's father, I believe, is a real person who existed. So you think
he's a real person?
Yes, that was a real person that existed. Now, exactly what happened, I don't know. We're talking about my headcanon. My personal headcanon is they got him out of his pod. The real, let's say your player character, for all intents and purposes, for what I'm talking about, his name is Nate. Nate is taken out of the pod. The real Nate is taken out of the pod, brought to the Institute against his will. They sample his DNA, and they want to keep him alive, but unfortunately something goes wrong and he has to be killed, basically. And they
he dies under the knife or something.
Yeah, he tried to fight and escape, and they had to put him down. So they take the DNA from him, and they basically create the first fourth generation synth. And the only difference a fourth generation synth has from a third generation synth that I would think of is the main one being they don't have a courser, a chip in their brain. If they have anything in their brain that's artificial to regulate their systems or whatever, it dematerializes over time from the tissue or whatever, because it's all organic. So there's that main thing.
Or it could be nanobots.
Right. It would. Some sciencey bullshit. It works.
Yeah, some undetectable shit.
And then the second big one being that these fourth generation synths would age at a normal rate, and they could even be created as babies so that they would grow up at a normal rate, because my logic was when you see the third generation synth being made, they come out as almost like adults. And I think that's because these synths are made to be slaves. They're not meant to be people that you look at and love and make friends with, they're there for labor. So they come out as full-grown adults, and they want them
They're
to
basically
be
worker
strong.
drones. That's what they
want them
are,
to be
yeah.
strong, and they don't necessarily want them to get old quickly and die. They want them to stay young for a long time. So that's the second big change, is that they age normally. And the third one, this is the big one that I think would bring up a big controversy, is that a 4th generation synth is designed to be able to reproduce with their DNA, which is like completely untainted by radiation. It's been like genetically modified in a lab to be like resistant to radiation, to be like a perfect human being, so to speak. And that's you. That is your character. Then when that experiment is made, which is Nate 2.0, the first 4th generation synth, they make you, and then Sean hides you by re-putting you in your cryo chamber, freezing you. You have the vague memories of a dead person that did once exist, but that is not you. The only reason you have the few memories you have, the reason that your only memories in the memory den are before the bombs fall, the only reason that when you tell Dima what you remember is only what happened when the bombs fell or none your business, is because those are the only faint real memories you have, are memories of a dead person that existed once before. And that's also, when Vince mentioned Nick Valentine, that is why I also think your character and Nick are like, you guys are best buddies, because technically I think you two are like the same thing in a way. If like my random headcanon, if it were the case, you and Nick are like the same thing, because Nick had had a person, a real person that existed, that is his whole personality, his whole being, but that's not him. And that's the point of your character. You were designed to be like the perfect person, and your father's like baby, main creation. Even though you're his father, you're also his main baby. You know what I mean? And
you're his father, but all right. Okay, yeah. That's really that's crazy.
And like, his hope was, when he froze you, and that like, if one day he unfroze you, that you would make the choice. And this was part of like, almost like his, I think like a moral dilemma he had in his mind, that he wanted to use you. Cause he said it even at the top of CIT after, Bunker Hill, he talks about how you were an experiment of sorts. And I think that it goes even further than that, in that he wonders if you, a free will synth, will do the right thing in his mind. What is the right thing? Because in his mind, the right thing is for you to take,
the right thing?
In his mind, to take over the Institute and redo his reign. But that's the thing, as a player, what do you think is right? You know, do you think
you really have a choice?
Do you think that you are an abomination? That you being a synth is an abomination, and that you shouldn't have even been created in the first place, in which case you go Brotherhood? Do you think that the Institute is wrong, and you think that all synths need to be freed, and you go with the Railroad? Do you think that, you know...
So, basically your choice on how you end Fallout 4 is Father's experiment? Yes.
It's all
That's
about
really cool.
It's all about Father's experiment of like, you're the first synthetically, but that's the thing. You're trapped by the fact your old identity. That, to me, at least, also helps me sit okay with having limited dialogue options, having limited things to say, and having a voice that's like, you feel trapped. And I think that like, to me, like, fits with the character. You're trapped by an identity that's not your own, because you are not human. And it kind of like helps you to sympathize, I think, with the other synths in the game. You know what I mean? If you love Blade Runner, like I love Blade Runner.
It's very Blade Runner-y.
I love Blade Runner, so like obviously I love Fallout 4. Like, just its concepts, its conflicts, it's awesome. So I know I probably went a little over my time, but you know, so that's my headcanon.
Absolutely fine.
Atomic Radio Hour.